In this video, we're going to bring everything you've learned in the series so far into the control canvas with a demonstration of a workflow that incorporates all of these fundamentals. We've already touched on the basics of the canvas, the viewer, and how to work with control layers and reference images. If you haven't watched those videos yet, we recommend you start from the beginning of the series before watching this video. Before we jump into the demo, let's talk a bit about the bounding box. The bounding box defines the specific section of the canvas that the model will focus on when you invoke. You can move the bounding box around an existing image to zoom in and focus on specific details. One key point to understand is that the bounding box automatically adjusts to fit the image resolution. For example, if you're working with a 1024 by 1024 pixel image, the model has roughly 1,000,000 pixels to generate the image. However, if you shrink the bounding box to focus on a smaller part of the image, the model still has that same 1,000,000 pixel resolution to work with. But now, it's concentrated in just that smaller area. This allows the model to capture much finer details in that region, making it a great technique for enhancing intricate areas without sacrificing quality. Beyond the bounding box, there are additional settings on the canvas that give you more control over the generation process. We'll explore these settings in more depth during the demo. Now I'm going to pass you over to Kent, who will walk you through a demo that we did for the Invoke 5.0 release, which goes through a lot of what we've covered in this series while introducing a few new concepts like in-painting and transforming.
Now, to get started, we'll go to my gallery. I've uploaded an in-progress control image, and I'll drag that directly to my canvas. With this in-progress sketch, I had this idea of kind of like a multi-tier futuristic estate built into a mountain. This is kind of pulling from some of those images that were generated and kind of getting that initial control sketch down. Now, I'm going to turn this into a control layer to guide the generation process, but I want to also go ahead and finish out some of the details. It's not quite exactly what I wanted in this image. And with the new control canvas, you can now edit control layers directly. Here, I'm going to add in a mountain in the background. So let's go ahead and do that. And with that mountain in place, I think I also want to make sure that this road is elevated. So I'll give it a little bit more of like a bridge-like look. And actually, I don't think I want this moon here, so I'm just going to go ahead and erase that out. I've got a prompt ready for this, and I'll go ahead and add that in. And I'll also choose a prompt template. What this is going to do is it's going to add some pre-baked prompt terms into my prompt, both in the positive and negative. A number of pre-baked default templates are provided, but you can also create your own. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But for now, I'm just going to use the environment art prompt template, and we'll go ahead and generate our image. I can see where it picked up a lot of what I had drawn in. I am going to go ahead and bring down the instep just a tad so that we can get some of these lines a little bit of freedom to breathe. And I think this looks pretty good. I am going to try switching to a different style just to see if I get something a little bit different. And we'll go ahead and evaluate. I think this one's probably the one that I like the most. Now, even with all of these options, I think it probably would help if I gave it a little bit of guidance on what I'm expecting in this image. So I'm going to discard all of these, and I'm going to go ahead and add a regional guidance layer. All right, now that I've got my regional guidance in and my control image, I actually have a lot more influence over this generation process. And before I generate, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the scribble model. This will give me just a little bit more flexibility in the sketch, and we'll go ahead and generate. Now we can see how the 4 regions I added really helped bring this together. The scribble model also helped as well. But I now have my futuristic terraced structure. I've got my elevated road coming into a city, and I've got this magnificent towering rock formation off in the distance, which is really, really cool. So I like how we're looking, but I want to add some more plants into this image. What I think I'm going to do is maybe just quickly generate some additional content in a different area. So I'm going to go ahead and take my bounding box off to the side. My control image and my regional guidance are both staying directly over the image. So I'm actually generating in a new area that doesn't have any regional guidance or control layers. I could turn these off by disabling each of these layers, but I don't really need to because I'm off in a different area. And so I'm going to take out my prompt and I'm going to add a little bit of a silly prompt here, but looking for a tree. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new raster layer because I want to guide this generation. I'm going to pick a background from my original image, and I'm going to try to pick up some colors from the original image as well. So we'll take some of this green. Some of this brown as well. And we'll keep this at a pretty high denoising strength. Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and accept that. I'll delete out my original sketch. And now I've got a tree that I can kind of copy and duplicate around. I'm going to quickly erase some of this background. And I don't need it to be perfect. I'm just going to use this as a little bit of like a cutout to kind of place that into the image. But we'll take that for bounding box back and go ahead and move this over. I'm using the move hotkey, which is V. There are a couple of hotkey differences in the canvas. We'll do a deep dive on some of the hotkey changes as we cover future videos, but I'm able to move this layer around. I can see where the control image is kind of sitting over this and where things are going to be there. I'll go ahead and transform this and bring this down as a smaller image, and I can then kind of add this where I want. Now, when I'm placing the image, I can use the control hotkey to kind of get a little bit more of a fine-tuned control over where I want that. We'll apply that transformation, and I'll duplicate this a couple times, transforming it each time just to get it to fit each of these spots. And again, we're going to do some denoising on top of this. So okay, so now I'll create an in-paint mask and I'll brush these areas. Might select some of the building as well. I'm going to bring my bounding box in to get a little bit more detail on this as well. And what I may want to do here is, because I've got some overlap, I can see where the control image might conflict with this tree that I've got. I'm just going to go ahead and erase out the control image where there's a little bit of overlap there. And we'll turn this to about a 0.6 denoising strength and give this a go. And I'm going to turn down the denoising strength a little bit lower. These have turned out well, so I'll go ahead and accept those, and that'll be added as a new layer on my image. Now, we can see that I've still got my other raster layers here. If I want to keep those around, I can, or I can go ahead and delete those. And luckily, the undo functionality still is working here. Control Z for that. If I want to take a look at my image real quick without seeing some of the other information here, you'll notice that I hid my regional guidance information. So that's still impacting the generation. These are all enabled. I'm just not seeing that in my workspace. I can do the same for the control layers as well if I want to. The control layers will still influence the generation process, but I can kind of work freely while looking at the actual raster content itself. Now, on one of these terraces, I want to turn this into kind of like a parking deck and have a super cool futuristic car. So I may zoom in on one of these areas here and just make this a little bit more clearly a parking deck, and then we'll get a car on this. Do some in painting here. Increase our denoising strength. Move a little bit over and create a tunnel. All right, so now that I've got my little tunnel ramp down into our driveway, I'm recognizing from a design perspective, this is going to be a terrible user experience for our driver here. They're going to have to back up into this tunnel, to which we say, too bad. And now we want to get our car on the driveway, so we're going to go ahead and in-paint a car in. What I'm going to go ahead and do is similarly move to the side over here and get ourselves an image. I'll change to our vehicles prompt. Now, this is a cool image, but what I'm going to do this time is instead of directly using this inside of our image, especially because the orientation is a little bit different, I'm just going to right-click to open our quick canvas menu, and I'm going to use the new regional reference image. That will add a regional guidance layer with this as its input image, and I'll go ahead and delete out this raster layer. And we'll move back. I'll focus in on this region here. And we'll go ahead and just quickly give it a rough shape in the driveway. Now we'll go ahead and do the regional guidance right here. Take a look at that, make sure that looks good. And then we'll go to our in-paint mask. Make sure we pick the right model that we want to use, and maybe bring this down a little bit for hiding that. And then we will say, go back to our environment art so that it matches the style here. Parked in a luxury parking lot. Driveway. So we now have our car parked in our driveway with our tunnel out into this beautiful house. And when we're done with our image, we can save this out to the gallery. It'll save that out to our images here. And if we want to, we can go ahead and send this to upscale. So we'll take that to the upscaling tab. We'll choose whatever upscaler we want to use, put back our original prompt here. And for the sake of just running this upscale, we'll leave our creativity and structure sliders at the default, and we'll go ahead and just 2x this image. We now have a much larger image with sharper details. And if we wanted to, we could bring this back into the canvas to continue to iterate and add detail and edit. There are so many possibilities for combining different layer techniques, using different tools together, bringing controls and regional controls directly into the canvas, allowing you to make edits and iterate and in-paint while keeping those control layers and regional guidance static so that you really have the flexibility to move around a single composition. We're really excited to see what you all create with the new canvas. This has been the vision for a long time and the hard work of a lot of members of the team to bring to fruition.